My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
Welcome to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you for joining me. The year 2020 has been one hell of a ride so far. We've dealt with talks of World War III. We were witness to a horrible helicopter crash that took the lives of 9 individuals, Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna being 2 of them. The entire world has been dealing with COVID-19, and the United States of America is on the brink of civil war due to the murder of an unarmed black man, George Floyd, at the hands of 4 Minneapolis police officers. This tragic event has sparked protests in all 50 states and around the world as well. Now, this is a topic that has been on my to-do list ever since I started this podcast, but it's such a huge undertaking that I wanted to get some experience under my belt before diving into this full on. But it is my duty to use my platform, as little as it is, to speak up and be a voice for those who have gone unheard for generations. As a black man, I fear for my life every time I walk out of the house. I fear for my children. I've had so many run-ins with the police due to traffic stops and just plain out harassment. Each time, I did everything I could to seem like I wasn't a threat so I could make it home to my family. So this topic is personal for me. I'm angry and I'm hurt over the senseless killing of unarmed black people by the police in America. You know, the first step in solving a problem is admitting that you have one. And from what I've seen this past week, America has finally admitted that racism is a problem here and always has been. Nothing will change unless we have the hard conversations with those who don't see this as a problem. And nothing will change unless we all get smart and vote out those in office who refuse to see the issue for what it is. It starts with us, but this isn't a problem that we created, so it can only end with you, my fellow white brothers and sisters. So be an ally. Use your voice to help bring an end to racism in America and then the world. This week I am joined by 2 guests. One is a returning guest. You know him, you love him. Sham, aka Din The Arbary, is back again. And I have a first-time guest, my dear friend Yasmin. And we're going to be talking about the events that led us to this point in America and what we can do to bring an end to the tyranny that is racism. Sham, aka Din The Arbary, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I say all things considered.
That's what, yeah. It's you know, this past week has been really crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If we end up having to do it next week, we're probably gonna have more information because we don't know where it's gonna go.
I mean, realistically, we can probably keep this going because, I mean, there's so much to talk about that by the time next week hits, I mean, we probably wouldn't have covered everything that needs to be talked about anyway.
That's very true. I actually, it's something that I've wanted to touch on since I started this podcast, but it's just, there's so many layers that I was like, I don't really know how to go about it. And then all this stuff popped off and I'm like, I gotta say something. Like I gotta speak about it somehow.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was actually just about to say like there's a it's a lot of layers to this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it is. I know we initially started talking because I posted that thing on Facebook about, if you see the cops murdering me, don't videotape it. Help me. And Yaz, your stance was that the video provides evidence of the wrongdoing, and I agree with that.
Hmm.
But it's hard to imagine the entire world seeing you die like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
that's the thing that I was going in about too. Like if and you guys already know I've been talking about this shit for damn near a decade now. Like I really think that like there is a racial like layer to it, of course. But I also think there's just this thing like there's this lingering fear to these people that like if they were to shoot somebody who's like a white dude or whatever, which they have killed some
Oh
white
yeah.
people. There's been some of those
Right.
issues, but there's some of them that are like, they're part of the gun association. Like, you really want to get into that kind of shit? You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's why I was saying, like, man, when it comes down to like the Second Amendment, that's what I'm like. I'm sitting there wondering, like, man, all the people that were advocating like completely against guns, not like gun control, like completely getting rid of them. Like, what are their thoughts on that? You know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I will say my opinion has changed a little bit since that conversation, and I gotta say I agree with Marcus in a sense now. I mean, I do say I still have to say that, I mean, just with any situation, any encounter with law enforcement, when you intervene, you know the repercussions of it and what it may do to you as well. But it is your Second Amendment right too. That man was being killed, and if someone would have stepped up to the plate and done something about it, like, you know, it's just a hard situation. But I do agree with Marcus on that view now.
Yeah, it's I was able to go back and look at that conversation, and I mean, you definitely had some valid points, um, but the it's such a hard thing to be in, especially because
Hmm.
I'm not physically in that position. So we can say all day long that if we were there, we would have did something, but you
Yeah,
never really know.
Yep. Yep.
that's
Yep.
the big
Everyone says
factor.
that.
So
I think what it really boils down to, at least for me, like if it's somebody that I know, like if it's us three, and then a cop is on one of us, fuck it.
right, right,
Whether I'm physically fit or not, I'm gonna try to do something. Whereas like if somebody I don't know, it's like you never really know the situation, what led up to that, and
True.
that it's tough to like the best thing you can do is record because you don't know the situation and you know that you're basically putting your livelihood on the line when you do that.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very good point. So I noticed, yeah, that you went to a couple protests. How was that experience?
Oh gosh. I mean, I told Sham, some stuff here and there, and I made a post about it. I made a few posts about it on Facebook. The first protest they had here on the strip, I didn't know about it. Just because I'm not on social media like that. So, and I don't keep up with the news like that neither. So
Right,
I'm very to myself. And so I saw that they're doing protests, and then another friend had mentioned it that they're going to do another big one at downtown. So I decided to go. And of course, with the whole pandemic going on too, it just feels a little bit weird now trying to invite friends to go and support this cause with a lot of them being scared.
Right.
So I just ended up going by myself, and I think that was thus far the biggest protest throughout this whole time, and it was fairly peaceful. I mean, of course, you had those rowdy people, and I understand it. I completely understand the anger too. Um, and of course, just with a lot of the videos that have surfaced online, um, and being so close to the police, it got aggressive because they were trying to push us back. uh Other than that, it was mostly peaceful, and it got wild because the police started getting wild on us. Um and the group somehow separated. I ended up going with, I guess, what was the more peaceful uh protesters, and we just stood in front of the cops. We said what we had to say, and I decided, I had to call it a night because I had to go to my family. And on the way back home, I heard two tear gas canisters go off, and I wasn't even near, and I could still feel the effects of it, which was crazy. Um, so that was my experience the first night. Um, and of course, reading up on news, I kept reading how it got out of hand, and cops just started getting aggressive with the crowd, and the crowd started getting agitated. um, so yeah. And the second time I went, it was a much smaller crowd. It was like maybe less than 100 people on the strip, and the meeting was supposed to take place in front of Mandalay Bay. So I went with a friend of mine, and we parked far away. We were kind of planning things out, and he pointed out something that I didn't really notice. And he's like, you know what, with where they're at, they're trying to box people in. And yep, lo and behold, we get there. We're there for like maybe less than 15 seconds. And one of the SWAT units um, started moving, and the others as well. And they started. I don't know if it was tear gas or smoke gas, because the adrenaline rush, I wasn't feeling anything. Um, but we started running. As soon as I saw other people running, well, I mean, we ran with them too, and they started throwing canisters um, in the areas that we were running towards. So they were literally trapping us into this private property, because we were at that point we were in front of the Luxor. Um, and then luckily there's a guy in our group that said, "Hey, well, if we go through this way, we can find the sidewalk," because the most important thing was to get off private property. We didn't
Right.
want to get arrested and catch a charge for some bullshit, even though they were the ones that boxed us in. And so yeah, I mean, finally we made it out. There were security guards from the Luxor that luckily pointing us the right direction, and they didn't try to stop us. And my friend and I, we ended up taking this long route just to get back to our cars, and we ended up walking like 13 miles just to avoid any confrontations from uh, the police that were really aggressive that night. Um, so yeah, that was my experience with the protests.
That's crazy.
Uh,
You
yeah,
know, I think it's been like the common theme is that a lot of these protests they start off really peaceful. I know the one out here in Delaware, the three that we've had so far, they've all been peaceful. And
yeah,
then when the police show up, they're the ones who start agitating the protesters.
yep,
Like they're trying to get a rise out of people so they can enforce their will, so to
yep,
speak. And same thing happened to my sister in law in Texas when she was down out protesting. Um, Same thing. It was peaceful. Then the police showed up, and then all hell breaks loose. And she got hit with the gas. So
yeah,
it's just it's, it's wild what's happening.
yep,
And people will sit and defend this like this is how it's supposed to be. Like I don't understand how you can clearly see what's happening and you choose to remain ignorant about it. Like, I don't understand that.
Well, the problem is that like what we're seeing everything because we're watching social media. Most of the people that are seeing these protests and stuff are seeing it from the news, and
Right,
news
right,
typing it up as if there are just nothing but riots going on. And then, Yasmin invited me to go, uh, and there was couple of factors as to why I didn't go was because of that. For one, and the other thing being that I already figured there was going to be, if not the police agitating things, there was going to be some people sent to uh, these gatherings to incite violence or incite some kind of like anything. You
right,
know, I actually legitimately don't think that any of the protesters, as mad as they were, are the ones that are actually doing the riots or looting or anything. I think that is all pretty much set up to make the protest look bad because it's pretty much happened any other time there's been a protest, like over the past decade or so. Anytime there's been a protest, there's always been a controlled opposition jumping in to mess things up.
right. I would have to agree with that, man. Because, like I said, from what I've seen, all of the protests have been peaceful, and then police show up, or you have that one rogue person who doesn't even look like they belong. First of all,
Yeah. Yeah, they stand out.
so
If it's not somebody who's like sent to do it from the get go, it's somebody who's just trying to take advantage that don't even care about the issue. They're
right,
just trying to take advantage of what's going on. And that's what's pretty much causing the divide is that people are trying to speak against that specifically, but people are taking it as they're speaking against the people who are protesting.
And then you
And
also have the people that have been trapped in their houses and, they're not used to that and they're just there to be there, you know?
yeah,
right.
So
There's
I
three
feel like
things.
there's three different crowds. There's, of course, Sam, like what you said, the agitators, who are just there to cause problems. And then there's people that are there who are legitimately there for the cause. And then there's people just because they don't have shit else to do, you know?
Yeah,
yeah, and when you have a mixture of that, it's always going to be a problem.
Yeah. So I feel like, in a sense, yeah, I feel like most of the people that are causing, who are looting and who are breaking into businesses are just the agitators, but I feel like it's also a mixture of some of the protesters, just because of that anger, and this
right,
is something that I was trying to explain to my brother is that, out of anger, you lose control. And, I'm not perfect. I reflect back to when I was a teenager or even in my early 20s where I had a lot of emotional stuff going on and I would act out violently at times and I would lose control. And I would give that example to my brother. And it's just like, when you lose control and you're constantly being pushed down, what do you expect people to do? You know?
right, right.
And
I think like one of the that's like where the major disconnect is
yeah,
for a lot of people because they see the riots and they see all the anger and whatnot,
hmm,
and when someone is that emotional, like they're not thinking rationally.
yep,
So if you try to speak to them logically, you're just gonna come off sounding like an asshole.
yeah, yeah,
So like
Yeah,
the best thing to do in a
100%.
situation like that is to listen and empathize, and when they are calm, that's when you can speak to them logically.
Yeah,
So I mean, I totally get that, and I was trying to explain to my wife because she is rightfully so against the violence and whatnot,
right.
but when you gotta understand, like when this has been happening since the beginning of this nation.
Yep.
Like you can't expect people to take abuse like this and not lash back. Like, I don't know what world they think we're living in.
I
Yep.
think the issue that I take with it is like there's a lot of people who like comparing this to the Boston Tea Party and stuff like that.
hmm
But the problem is, or even if you want to like compare it to when Martin Luther King or Malcolm X gathered people, the problem is when those things happen, they had a plan. They had
Right.
they had a group. They had organization. There wasn't just riots. The riots happened because the police were completely agitating things.
hmm
There's not a lot of planning and grouping together, and the biggest problem with like our generation is that we get mad about something, we protest and talk about it on social media for about a week tops, and then we're on to the next issue, or we're back to just the normal thing. And the difference now is because of the COVID situation, and that's another beast in its own. Whether the flu is actually real or not, we've been trapped in our houses with no work and nothing else. So now we're just most of us are just like trapped animals in a cage that just got put out after somebody's been beating on us for a while.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true, man. Um, like I hope, I sincerely hope that some good can come out of this, uh, because I think like for the first time, at least that I can remember, like I've never seen like the world so focused on one like cause. Like there were protests in all 50 states,
Yeah.
13 different countries held protests. You had the Amish come out. Like, who told them? First of all,
Yeah. Yeah. That happened?
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
Amish, some witches,
like witches.
news
Like,
about
come
it.
on, like,
Yo, what the heck?
yo, check this out. Like, I just heard this earlier today. Like, a group of Christians were planning on getting together to hold prayer for the witches because the witches are out there casting spells or whatever they do, and this group of Christians like we need to pray for them to protect them, and I'm like, how messed up is the
Man.
situation when you got the Amish, the witches on the same side, and you got the Christians trying to protect the witches? Like, what?
Oh my
The
god.
Avengers assemble.
I was about to say like Unity or something, man, like the skit from Dave Chappelle. Unity. You
Well,
know,
you
and
go ahead.
th-
Go ahead.
no, I was just about to say, I mean, Sham, like, and I'm not sure, Marcus, if we've ever really touched up on it, but I'm a big music head, and I used to follow underground music a lot more back in the day. But there's this artist that passed away, and his song really hits right now. But the one verse I won't ever forget, he said, and I mean it's so simple, but it definitely hits home now. Uh, he mentions how you know if the whole nation, if everybody gets is united, there's not a government in the world that can fight it. And I'm like,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
true.
literally happening. You got all types of people and from various countries getting together fighting, a cause.
hmm
And you see the government reacting, and this is just the start, this isn't over yet.
No, but not by a long shot.
No.
Well, you know me. I'm the negative Nancy here. I'm the Tin Man. I got my tinfoil hat and microwave around my chest. Um, I I'm very very skeptical about the whole situation. Like everybody coming together and everything,
Mhm.
it just seems a little too easy. Like with the pandemic and everything, like I was telling Marks before, it is very interesting to me that
Mhm.
all these governments suddenly came together and finally decided, hey, we got to shut down everything for this pandemic. and everything that's been happening this year has just been left to right. It's like a Jumanji game, and I'm just waiting for the aliens to come.
Nice.
Yeah, like I'm waiting for the aliens, but I'm also waiting for like the COVID, like the people who died from COVID to get back up and start walking again. Like if it's gonna be a zombie apocalypse, like this is definitely the year for it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the spectacularly crazy stuff to happen. I think that's like going to happen the second half of the year. July all the way to December. Dinosaurs coming back, all that crazy stuff. Well, I'm waiting for that to happen.
Uh,
See, my uncle, he's a hardcore Christian, and I grew up Catholic, but I never really felt connected with my religion. I mean, and of course, that's a whole different topic, like, like Sham said earlier about COVID.
mhm.
But he mentioned like pretty much everything that's going on. It's very biblical, and I'm not too sure about it, but it kind of does seem like some shit is just like boiling. And I mean, you got earthquakes happening, uh you got all types of shit going on. I mean, I can't even sleep at night just because there's so much going on in my head.
Yeah, that I can agree with that. Like I was supposed to take a nap before I went to work tonight, and like I couldn't because like I just
Yeah.
so much stuff going on. Like I couldn't sleep. Um, and a lot of that has to do with just anxiety.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I'm right there with you.
and like it's difficult. Like when things like this happen, like it's difficult being in an interracial relationship because I can't really like I can talk to my wife, but she doesn't like really understand, like because she's never really experienced
Yeah.
hate like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
so like I end up like I try to talk to her, but I can't really go as deep as I want to.
It's actually
That's why I'm really
interesting.
happy that you guys agreed to do this episode with me because we can kind of like really get into it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I was actually talking to an actually came from the food truck today. I was actually talking to the owner of the food truck because she didn't know what to do. On Tuesday, she didn't know whether she should actually be open or not or closed down because of Blackout Tuesday. And of course, she's Japanese. She's half Japanese, half white.
Right.
Um, but she didn't really understand, like, you know, why she couldn't really speak on the fact that, like, she doesn't really think that all cops are bad, and she thinks like this whole situation is messed up, but she's not with the rioting and stuff. And she feels like if she were to say anything, people would just label
Hmm.
her as a racist and all this other stuff. And I was telling her, I've been doing this for a whole decade. Okay, every time I speak on these things, people want to say, I'm crazy, or it's always a black and white issue with like majority of the population because they don't pay attention to anything. And
Sure.
of course, Japanese people have gone through a lot of shit in this country as well. And the
Hmm.
COVID thing that hit every Asian denomination, simply because
Yeah.
it came from China. And that. And I was also explaining to her though, like when it comes down to black people, we experience racism from everybody because if it's not white people, it's other people of color who still think that they're a step above us and they treat us a certain way.
Yeah.
And if 2020 has done anything, it's pretty much brought them down and humbled them and showed them, no, you're not too much different from us. You know,
Right. Yeah. That's very true, man. And I mean, if you like really look at the history, you, everyone can see that we're not that different.
everybody's had their slice of racism in this country.
like, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Sham, because I've had people from all races, look down on me for being black, especially being as dark as I am.
Yeah.
I've gotten it from everywhere.
I mean, even when you want to boil it down to like actual African Africans, they don't like American black
No,
people.
they do not.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, and I will say this too, coming from a Latino family where, my brother and I were the first generation born here from my immediate family. And my dad's from Mexico. My mom was born in Guatemala. And for whatever reason, it's just black people seem to be the target in various countries. And they tend to pass that on to their children, being my
mhm.
brother and I. So it wasn't necessarily like 100, like it wasn't like anything super aggressive, but when the topic came about black people, or we saw the news and then uh, they talk about black people in a negative way, um, they kind of have that same opinion. Uh, and even with this protest going on, and I can see how divided I feel within my own family on the topic. And it's hard to explain it to that old school generation because they're so stuck in that mindset. But at the very least, I can shed some light to, if they are thinking any differently, they won't admit it because it's that
Right.
pride. But, I did explain it to my brother. And, you know, I pretty much gave him the analogy of someone that posted it on Twitter. Um, well, if someone comes up and hits you, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna keep, like, you're just gonna have that person keep beating you down, or are you going to defend yourself? And he's like, well, yeah, I get it, because obviously most people would say, yeah, of course we're not with the violence, but we understand the aggression, we understand where that's coming from.
Hmm.
So I think in that sense that's where people, like you said earlier, don't understand it. And I will say, being a part of the protest and just being in that energy, and kneeling when next to other people, and it just, I completely understand it now. I won't say like 100% because I didn't grow up black, and I think being a woman too, and let's be real, like, your cosmetic looks, they are important to society. That's what people see you. People are always going to judge you no matter what. So I get to play my woman card and being a Latina card all the time, and I get away with shit, you know. So to say that I understand uh that complete hate, I don't, but I understand the anger.
You can empathize with it, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
empathize with it. Um, I will say this though. To your point about being a woman, I think if any group of people on this planet can empathize with black people, it's definitely women, and that's women of all races because women get shit on all the time just for being a
yeah,
woman.
that's true. I
So,
guess um I guess personally, I haven't really had to deal with it too much, luckily, but of course, I hear it through social media, the news, through friends, and, but I mean, you guys have known me for a while now. And I think it's just a matter of personality traits as well. I'm always mostly calm and chill, so I
mhm.
don't really let shit get to me. So I guess that's why um, maybe I just don't let it get to me. But I mean, I do agree with you.
Yeah, I this whole thing is it's made me like angry and sad all at the same time. And
Yeah.
like I spend a lot of time with my mother-in-law. Like she's always over. Um, love the woman to death. And we have these conversations all the time. Um, but I don't think she quite gets why I'm so angry and hurt. And I try to explain to her like George Floyd could easily have been me.
Yep.
Like that could easily have been my son could have been Tamir Rice, and when you have to face that reality every day, it gets hard, and like sometimes I break down over it. Like, what about you, Shem? How do you feel about that?
It's mixed for me. I used to feel that way when I was first getting into like seeing all these things happen. But I guess I pretty much become numb to it over after a while because one thing I specifically um, recall was that I voted for Obama like his first term,
Mm-hmm.
and within the first 4 years, I seen like firsthand because with Bush, it's like all right, well, if this guy's been in office for 8 hours or 8 hours, 8 years, if
Eight
this
hours
guy's
is long.
yeah, I wish it was 8 hours. If this guy had been in office for 8 years
Yeah.
and people didn't even want him in the first place, there's already something wrong there.
Right.
But when I saw Obama in office for 8 years and not much has changed, and then on top of that, we've seen like anybody really just 0 point focusing on what the hell he was doing, seeing that like he was putting stuff in to protect cops and all kinds of other things that were going on while this stuff was going on. It just showed me that like you just cannot trust the presidency. Um, you can't trust the system at all, even if they put a black face on it.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, the system was rigged from the get go.
So from what I've pretty much, I mean, at least what I've been thinking over the years is just like, well, how do we prepare for these situations? Because that's to me, that's what I think is the biggest problem is that we are a very reactionary generation, and that's what's leaving us in a frenzy. Like
Yeah.
there's no planning, there's no grouping together, there's no getting together to do things. Like there are entrepreneurs out there, there are people that are making plans and stuff, but from what I've seen, most of them are the generation before us that are still doing these things. You
Yep.
know, there's like a split. There's the ones that are just old school and just think that they can just rely on the system and the system's perfect to them or whatever. And then there's the other ones that actually do realize what's going on and they have the means to make plans and do stuff and they're doing it. Whereas our generation is just we're just all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Um, we definitely are all over the place, and I think technology has a lot to do with that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like why don't we? I mean, you and I talk, Sham. Like we could easily get together. I mean, well, not physically. That costs a lot of money, but we could definitely bounce ideas off each other and try to come up with plans. We could try to organize things.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Like I just always think back to like I really like reading about the Black Panthers and stuff. But they're a perfect example. The media try to play them off like they were like the Black Ku Klux Klan. And there's so many people that still to this day think that that's what they were. When the reality of it was they were just a gang of people protecting their neighborhoods and
Hmm.
their communities and stuff. In fact, they're the reason that WIT exists. You know, that's how organized they were.
Right, right. Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
Mm.
and you notice they got dismantled. Just the same as any other movement, Malcolm X, MLK, dismantled from the inside.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis still walk around doing whatever.
Dude, still walking around, lighting tiki torches and shit.
Yep. Yep.
My thing
And
is, it's like, this could lean into one of two ways. One, we can all accept that everybody has the freedom to do anything, no matter how stupid, racist, or whatever it is. Uh, but also accept that there's consequences to those freedoms. Uh, so if somebody gets slapped for using the N word, I mean, they knew it was coming. Or we could get to a point where we make some kind of progression and we weed out people like that and try to make a system that is better for everybody. one way or another. I mean, I'm I'm for either. To be honest, like I said, even with the whole N-word thing, I tell people all the time, hey, you say whatever you want to say, but if you say it around the wrong people, don't look at me if they do something to you, because I'm not helping you.
That's very true, man.
I will protect your freedom to say whatever you want to say, but I also protect their freedom to do whatever they want to do to you if you say those things.
Yeah,
So,
that's yeah,
Yeah.
that's real talk right there. I think, especially with the N word, like if you want to say it, by all means, go ahead and say it. Like I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not gonna protect you either.
True.
But and that's like with everything anything else in life where you have the freedom to do that.
I think the best
But
quote,
you also have the consequences that come with your actions.
I think the best
Yeah.
quote from Batman was, "I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you
Exactly.
either."
Exactly. Exactly, man.
Yeah, it's true. But you got like all these internet warriors, where they thrive off of using those words on the internet where they know they can't get hurt, but in person they like to whisper it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like that one skit from Key and Peele where they're having problems with their wives, so they gotta go like to the basement and they're
Yeah.
like, I said, "Bitch." Like it's
I
and I
love that
get it,
skit.
obviously you're scared, but it's if you have the courage to say those words on the internet, but you don't have the courage to say it in person, then what's the point?
Yeah, and that's what I mean by we're stuck in this middle point right now where people are wondering why they can't say it.
Hmm.
They're not understanding why. But the whole thing about it is it's like if we're going to utilize it and turn it around to be a term of endearment, we're going to have to get used to the fact that other people are going to look at it that way too.
Yeah, of
And
course.
that's why I say, we got to lean one way or the other. Either everybody can use it and then everybody just subject to whatever consequences come with that, or we can just ban the word entirely, just like nobody says it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, me personally, I would go for no one saying it. I just get rid of it.
Yeah.
But
That's
you
probably
know,
easier.
if everyone chose to keep it and anyone could say it, go ahead. Just
Just be
guard the chicken.
mindful of, when and where you say it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
So, how do you think this next week's gonna play out?
I am not sure because, on one hand, we have seen Black Lives Matter, and that is another topic. But we've seen Black Lives Matter sue California, and they lifted the curfew.
Mm-hmm.
We've also seen the four men that killed Floyd arrested,
Yeah.
but at the same time, some cops have been shot, and that has raised some concern. Even though I'm quite certain none of those cops were shot during the protest or anything to actually do with the protest. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next week. But there was another thing that popped up recently. Hillary Clinton went to court for
Yep.
those
Yeah, she did.
emos exposing her as a pedophile. And that's another thing that makes me very skeptical about everything that's going on. It's very interesting to me that all this stuff happens around the time that she ended up having to go to court for that. And I guess
Mm.
September is the I can't think of the word right now. There's another court date for it, but I can't think of the word. But and I'm kind of interested in what's going to happen in September to distract us from that.
Hey,
Right.
maybe it'll be the aliens.
Yeah, it probably would be the aliens. That'd probably be the biggest thing that they could throw out. They probably gonna say that for December. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, it's wild that happened, and it's nobody's talking about it. It's not on the news. It's like, and
I
I'm
didn't even know about it.
It's
yeah,
it's predictive programming basically. Like I said, all the conspiracy theorists are just walking around with their "I told you so" hat on. But me, I don't really care. I don't care about being right. I'd actually rather be wrong. I'd rather be crazy. I'd rather be actually crazy, like people keep saying I am, than actually be right about all this crap. But you know, it is predictive programming. Basically, what they kind of toss in a little information at you, knowing that you're not going to react to it, and then when it happens, you know, you're kind of prepared for it subconsciously, but you're not really prepared for it. You know.
Yeah.
What
Well,
do you
I
think
mean,
is the
to
outcome of this? I guess.
what would you say?
I said, well, what do you guys think is the whole outcome of this? You know, well, what is the whole conspiracy of what's going on? Because I honestly don't follow theories or conspiracy, like the whole conspiracy theory um subject. I think it's too much, and I don't really necessarily believe in everything because of course you got people that are just too out there, and I think
Yeah,
most of the stuff happening is kind of predictable. It's not necessarily a theory of well, we had called this out a long time ago. It's just like when things build up, it's like, well, what do you expect things to happen? It's kind of like it's a cause and effect, you know.
yeah.
Right.
I think it's just the order of how things are happening is more so than the things that are actually happening. Like if this were spread out over the past 5 years or something, like we had something happen here and there, it'd be one thing. But like this stuff is happening back to back, and every time we turn around, like even the COVID thing, like soon
Mm.
as these riots happen and everything, it's like everybody just completely forgot there was a virus out there. And then like we're talking about it, we're like, yo, what happened to the coronavirus? What happened? We just had this whole thing of we needed to stay inside, and like they didn't even try to enforce that, but now they're enforcing it for the riots and stuff, and nobody's talking about this. All of a sudden, we got 19,000 cases shoot up in 24 hours, even though the test is supposed to be like 3 to 5 days for results.
Right.
It, technically, it's 2 to 3 days.
Well,
I
two to
would
three
say
days, yeah.
that's misinformation. But you know, I will say I will put it out there. I believe the virus is real. I can't say if it's as crazy as it has been. But I mean, just from friends working in hospitals and just knowing people personally going through it, it's very real. You know.
I think it exists. I think the situation though is blown up past like blown up way past proportions that it should have been. I think
Yeah.
that's what's happening. I think they're taking advantage of that. That's what I'm seeing it as because there's been a lot of cases of people being diagnosed with it who very likely didn't have it. You know, um, and there's a lot of that going on, and that's why I said like with even with the riots and stuff, it's like everybody just forgot, you know, that we had this virus going around, and
Yeah.
and I mean the coronavirus it's existed long before this, and that's what I was saying in the other podcast. Like this stuff, just like the swine flu, has existed for a while, but every time there's a pandemic or a breakout or something, they treat it as if it's a brand new disease, and even if it's a new strain of it, it has existed, you
Right.
know, and that's the thing that makes me very just skeptical about everything because why is everything happening at such a fast pace like this? You know,
So do you think the do you think this will lead to martial law?
I'm not exactly sure. It feels like and that's what I mean. Like, what is going to happen next week? Are they going to kill somebody else, and are we going to get back into more riots? Like, I don't know. Like, they've pretty much been poking at this whole martial law thing, but it feels like it hasn't gotten to the boiling point just yet. And people are still demanding justice for all the other people that were killed by cops now that they put those away. So it's going to be a big domino effect.
Yeah. 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 Because that's what I'm wondering too. It's like, well, okay. people wanted justice, and the main officer, I forgot his name, something Chav, something, I
Uh,
forgot his name.
Derek Chauvin.
Yeah, that fool. Um, his charge became a second degree murder, if I remember right, and the other three were arrested. I haven't followed up on the other three and what they're arrested with, probably like accessory to murder or something like that. But I mean that, I agree. The this started because of George Floyd, but I saw it as a whole movement with police brutality against black people. And
Yeah.
this isn't. I don't think it's going to be over. And like Sham said, next week someone can shoot up somebody else and shit can hit the fan easily. Right now things are very sensitive, so it can take anything to trigger anything, you know.
I think to speak to that point about them being arrested and charged for second degree murder, this is a bigger problem too with people not knowing how the system works.
Hmm.
People are demanding that they charge him for first degree murder. And here's the thing, if they do that, he's going to get off because
Yep,
they don't have enough evidence for that.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
people are
that's
going to
right.
think they're going to get a victory because they're charging him first degree murder. He's just going to get off fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, nah, yeah. They can't prove that it was premeditated, so they can't
Yeah.
charge him for first degree murder. Um, they barely have enough to charge him for second degree murder. To
Yeah,
be
second
honest.
degree is the best we're going to really get in that case.
Um, and I mean this has happened. This played out so many times where the officer will get arrested and be
Hmm.
charged, and then they'll beat the case. So unless I see a conviction, I'm not really.
That's
Yeah.
exactly where I'm standing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to bet that that's going to be a thing that ticks everything off is that he's going to get off scot free.
Yep.
And that's going to be the boiling point.
Yeah, I told him that.
It
I was
has
like,
to
if
for
you
that.
think the riots are bad now,
Whew.
if he beats this whole fucking country will burn. Like,
Dude.
And you
Yep.
notice his wife divorced him, and everybody thinks that's a victory. Really, that's asset protection.
yeah,
She
absolutely.
divorces him, takes all of his stuff, and then whether he beats the case or not, he's not losing any of his stuff.
Yep.
Nobody's peeping that.
But I will say, I can't say I completely agree with that, because that's also another, for me, a conspiracy theory. That's just an assumption. I can see how people can think like that, and it makes sense. I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing, but it is an interesting, perspective that I didn't even think about.
Well, really, the reason I say that is because this guy has killed other people before. He's had his outings with this before, and his wife is stuck around.
Right.
But has
My
it been to this gravity where pretty much the whole spotlight is on him and his family, his friends, on anybody he's associated with? It's like they don't want to be, or my assumptions would be that they don't want to, right? Because that's a whole lot of tension, that's a whole lot of danger you're bringing with your family, right? So it's like I could see in the sense, like, if her divorcing her husband, that means that the limelight will be taken off of her. And I don't know if they have kids or whatever, but I feel like it's more of a, I'm gonna protect myself too and my family.
I get that perspective, but at the same time, like whether wherever she goes, I mean, she's always gonna be associated with him. Like,
that and that kind of rolls even further into the asset protection. Is that if she divorces him, it takes a spotlight off of her. And if he's done this before, I could absolutely guarantee that him and his wife have planned out anything. If anything like this were to happen, what would we do? Okay, I'm gonna need you to divorce me so the spotlight's not on you, and you can protect my assets and all that stuff. Because the spotlight's really just gonna be on him. Um, but with her brother being in law enforcement as well, and
hmm
actually being there on the scene when that happened,
Yeah.
there's a lot of foul play there.
yeah, that's a lot of
So
foul play.
her brother was one of the cops that was holding
Yeah,
down George Floyd as well.
he
Nah,
wasn't holding it down. He was watching it though.
yeah,
He
he
was
was
like
the
right
one.
there.
He was the one spectating.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
What the heck? See, I didn't know that.
Uh, Tune in next time on Dragon Ball Z.
You blowing my mind right now.
Uh, like
See,
I
and I guess this is, a part of it, and going back to what Sham was saying, and this is part of one of the conversations I was telling you guys about, that I was talking to, I won't mention names, but I was talking to somebody about that, was pretty much like they understand why the protests are going on, but they think that the rioters and pretty much in general, it's stupid. Even he felt like even protesting really doesn't lead to anything. And in a sense where I kind of agree with what he was saying, and this is what Sham was saying too, that our generation just, we're not really planning things out. We're just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah.
But realistically, we need to come up with game plans rather than making a whole lot of noise. And you see like people like MLK who went to go get an education to understand the law system. And even with all of that, it didn't really go obviously his way. But you know, in our generation, we're giving so much power, so I feel like it's important to keep on growing and you know educate ourselves. And if we really care something as strongly as we do for the cause, what are we doing for the cause, you know
Yeah.
rather than I'm not saying that protesting doesn't work. It's just we need to plan shit out, what's next.
Oh, I'm
And
right there. I'm actually right there with you.
yeah,
That's pretty much what I was getting at. Like, um, if like it's like that's why I brought up like the Black Panther stuff like that. Was if somebody that organized back in
hmm
that time and didn't have as many resources as we did, were able to do
yeah,
something like that. Imagine how organized we would be, you
man,
know, with the stuff that and the technology that we have. I think that's why they keep us so distracted and complacent and
yep,
stuff like that. And then situations like this, again, tinfoil hat, like I feel like they do these things on purpose to get us riled up, you know. Um, and even with the COVID thing, you know, whatever the source is for the outbreak, whether it was intentional, accidental, or whatever, they saw that as a way to take advantage, take away certain freedoms. You notice that we actually have a right to assemble, which is more than 10 people. I don't know if you guys noticed,
mhm.
but when the COVID happened, they put a ban on having more than 10 people.
yeah.
That was
Yeah,
literally just taking our rights away. Nobody flinched. Nobody flinched to that.
which
So
Latinos were like, well, I gotta say, Latinos were like, nah. I gotta say, which a little side note, I was lied to about this baby shower that was supposed to be a drive-through, and that was no damn drive-through baby shower. That was a whole out.
how do you even
I
do a
forgot
drive-through
COVID
baby
exists.
shower?
Ah,
Tequila
that's
shots.
funny.
It was. I was like, yo, I'm out of here, man. I'm uncomfortable.
That's funny. I have to say, I have to admit, like I did not observe that whole 10-person thing. Like no, like
No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, me neither.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not comply with that. But yeah, to go back to your guys' point though about what are you doing besides protesting? It takes me back to Colin Kaepernick, specifically though when Jay Z became a partner with the NFL, and
Yep.
he was asked like, "Are you going to try and get Cap his job back?" And Jay Z was like, "No, like that's not what I'm here for." Like he understood why Kaepernick did what he did.
Yeah.
Salute to him, but and then he said something that a lot of people didn't really catch on to. They didn't really grasp. He was like, "We're past kneeling. Like we're at the point where now we have to do something."
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody was paying attention to that, and everybody got
Yeah.
pissed off at Jay Z. And it's like, no, did you not pay attention to what he said though?
Yeah, like we're past kneeling. Like we're past the protests are good. Like I'm never gonna discredit them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but there has to be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, there has to be a plan of action. You know, there has to be a plan of action put in place to kind of prevent things like this from happening. Yeah, it's not going to stop every cop from killing everybody, but at least the way I see it, like if the three of us came up with a contingency plan in case something like this were to happen to one of us, for example, that's a bigger thing. You know, why would I go to these protests or in the case of what you were talking about before, Marks, why would I jump in to stop the cop from doing something to somebody that I don't really know when nobody in that protest or nobody in that person's family or anything is going to come take care of my family?
Right.
Yeah.
My family
Yeah.
loses everything because I jumped in to help somebody I don't even know. So if you have
100%. Yeah.
a contingency plan and a support group of people that together and you guys have stuff planned out, you guys put together money, whatever. Even if you're putting together a business,
Mm.
even something like that is a revolutionary movement. That's
Absolutely.
people don't understand. Like entrepreneurship is a big thing. Self sufficiency is a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
Yeah.
not dependent on a system, like what can they really, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Me and Yaz were just talking about that before I hit record. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you have to, and I think a lot of people are realizing now because of the whole COVID thing. Like you can't really depend on these corporations anymore. Like you got to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And like what you were just saying, even if you start a business, even if you do something like that, um, in regards to having contingency plans and things like that, like that's a whole revolution in itself.
Yeah.
So
And I
it's
gotta say, like, I gotta give a shout out to more recently on Twitter. There's a lot of people like shouting out black artists and stuff like that. I've come across a lot of black artists, a lot of comic book creators, a lot of content creators stuff over the past couple weeks.
hmm
And I mean, of course, I've been supporting a lot of these people for a good number of years, but I didn't even know there was so many of them. So I didn't give props. Like there are a lot of people out there trying to do their own thing.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just a matter of all of us actually coming together and make something big. Like, having our own, like even in the comic book industry, having our own Marvel or our own type of DC kind of thing. You
right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's money that's pouring in and it's putting money into your community. It's putting money into your families to, do things to protect yourself because that's pretty much what's happening
Yeah.
um, with a lot of these other groups of people. They have a system going. So you're not, I mean, like you said, cops are going to be cops because cops are their own gang. But, when you have a system in place, you're a little less likely to end up in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
true.
true. Yeah.
I agree
And
with that.
yeah.
Well said, man.
Yeah. And I mean, and someone pointed this out to me on Facebook because, of course, just with every time Black Lives Matter comes up, of course you get those people that are like, well, but what about other lives matter? Anything else matters, and it's like, well, all right, well, I don't want to discuss that no more because it's like either at this point you get it or you don't, and
Right.
at some point you'll understand it when you're meant to understand it. If if you don't understand it now, then you're not meant to understand it now.
Well,
And
as Marcus knows,
yeah,
people
yeah.
are interested.
That's a nice word.
uh,
Yeah, interesting.
Another thing that one of my friends say, I talk with them all the time, is that
Hmm.
you know what? You just cannot in this world. You cannot make too much sense. You cannot make too much sense at all. Uh,
Yeah,
uh, and my thought process is, if you have to explain why Black Lives Matter is not exclusive or um, alienating, you probably shouldn't be in that conversation. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Because it should be common sense that when somebody says Black Lives Matter, they're not saying that other lives do not matter. It's no
Right.
different than if somebody says, "I want to raise money for cancer," and then some jackass pops in. Well, what about hemorrhoids? You don't want to raise money for hemorrhoids. What's wrong with you? You hate people who got hemorrhoids. You hate them.
Yeah.
It's like I'm focused on cancer right now.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely more of a sensitive topic with like specifically other minorities. Like something I've been seeing a lot is people posting pictures about uh like Latinos being locked up in cages, and they're saying, well, nobody was there to riot when we're protesting, this, and they'll flash pictures, and I get it, I get it, but it's up to us to come up with those game plans. People always want to point their fingers at everybody else,
Yeah.
and with any other causes going on, but it's like, well, okay, what was your plan of action next?
And to speak
Right.
to that, like I feel like that's nonsense for them to say that nobody was doing anything. There was a
Yeah.
lot of people doing stuff. There was a lot of systems in place. There were a lot of people speaking up in that situation, and there wasn't, like, at least from my perspective, from what I've seen, there wasn't a lot of people jumping in. Like, well, what about other race? Like, there was nobody doing that in those
Mm.
situations. Like, we all, like, the biggest divide there was people who feel like people need to be in this country legally, and then there was people that felt like, but my thought process is, regardless if they're legal or illegal, that's still inhumane to be treating them like that. And it's not
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like this country hasn't had a
100%.
history of doing stuff like that with people who were legal or
Yeah.
people who were forcefully brought
Yeah.
Right.
here. So
Yeah.
uh, I think you guys make some very very valid points. I have seen a lot of people post like where were you at when they were throwing us in cages. I think this whole situation should be looked at as a turning point. We're like
Yep.
we've never been this united before, ever. So now comes the time, like Sham said, where we need to start planning things,
Yeah.
start planning these contingencies. So next time something horrific like that happens, we don't have to say, well, what about us?
exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
And I felt it the hardest even when the coronavirus happened, because thinking about it, you're not stocking up on toilet paper for for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
But just the stuff that I had did before, just I have a big family, so I have to have a lot of water and stuff like that put away. We started having a lot of canned food and stuff that we like to use the stuff for recipes anyway. Um, but even just having a Costco membership, that saved us a lot, because a lot of people weren't paying attention to actually go to Costco, because Costco's membership is like $60 to $120 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to spend money on a membership. Even stuff like that, it's not like you need like huge strides. It's just smaller steps. Invest in certain things. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel you. On that note, I think we're gonna call it for this session. I would love to do this again, uh, sooner rather than later, because there's still so much that has to be talked about.
Oh yeah, I feel like we
We barely even
barely
scratched the
even get like,
surface,
yeah,
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah.
but this is gonna be
There's
an
so much.
editing nightmare for me. So,
Sorry, man.
no, no, it's all good. It's all good. I love it. But yeah, I definitely want to get together and do this again, because it's been very, very insightful and very nice to be able to talk about this with other people who understand but also want to make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think once we I don't know what direction this month is going. I just know that I'm out of work and I got all this time on my hands. So I'm down to try to plan some stuff out, try to figure things out. I mean, I even thought about just leaving Vegas because we don't. The only thing I was holding here was the job, and I don't have that now because the strip is pretty much desolate.
Yeah.
I think it's always good to explore different options, and you may end up somewhere that could be great for you and your family.
Yeah.
So definitely don't rule it out, man. Um, and as far as Vegas, I think it's going to take a good while for Vegas's economy to spring back into action.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a
So who knows, man? You can always come to Delaware.
yeah. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for
want
it
to have
to
you
go.
welcome you with open arms.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's
but
pretty nice out there. I'm not gonna lie.
it's like what Sham was saying. I mean, it is something that I agree. And not to take up more time, it's like, well, we do have a lot of free time, and of course, there's been those days where I wasn't productive, but realistically, I flipped it and turned it into positive thought where I'm like, all right, I was a workaholic and I never even gave myself time to watch any of the shows that I wanted to watch. So I'm using this as my rest time, but
Yeah,
also, trying to split up time where I'm trying to be productive and learning new trades and, getting into a new career and like you said, trying to become your own entrepreneur,
yeah,
because it's again, what's the next step? And I feel like, uh, for what I want to do to help my community out, I feel like I need lots of money, and to build that foundation, to build something for
right,
not just my people, but for minorities around me. And I shouldn't just say minorities because I feel like we need to be united.
Right.
yeah.
Um, but I need to hustle. I need to work. I need to keep educating myself, and like, so that's my next step. Well, I'm in the process of it, so
Yeah. I
um
mean, even the fact that you're just putting in the effort is admirable enough because there's just a lot of people that just don't know. They just don't know what to do.
True.
Like
which
their
sucks.
job was their whole life.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't know what to do right now, and so just even putting the effort to make those changes is a big stride right now.
I would say when you find your purpose in life, you will get so much drive and so much, like, throughout this pandemic. Of course, there's been days where I've been anxious, but I haven't been worried about my financial status. I haven't been worried um, as much in general because I'm so confident in myself and I know my purpose and I know my drive. And like in this, with everything going on, I feel like that just pushes me more to get to where I need to be, and
I think
I,
that's the silver lining in all this happening is that
yeah,
we're coming to realize how things should have been in the first place.
yep,
True
You
that.
know, like we should have been at this point where it's like, you know what, I want to do this. I want to make money doing this. This is what I want to do.
yep.
You know, not oh, I have to do this. I hate this job. Why am I here? Oh wait, paycheck to pay on something that probably shouldn't cost as much as it does.
Right. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I will say this: I am currently sitting at my job, uh, but like Sam said, I'm doing this for a paycheck.
Yeah,
And what I'm currently doing with you guys right now is where my passion lies. So when I can turn that into income, then I won't need to be sitting here watching
yeah,
cameras all night.
Seriously, you
absolutely.
will get there, man.
And, and this isn't to say like the 9 to 5 isn't useful or anything like that. Like I have respect for that as well. Like
Absolutely.
even when we have our own businesses, we're gonna have to need people that work for us.
Hmm.
You
Right.
know, but at least in this situation, I think more people are gonna spring up with businesses that are more understanding of their employees and they're gonna treat them a lot better. You know,
Right.
they're gonna look at like, okay, well, now we know that certain things can be done from the house. we can cater to certain issues for people. You know, it's a lot of things. It's eye opening for business owners as well, and like how they should treat their employees. So
That's
there's
very
that
true.
too.
Very true. Very true, man. All right. Well,
That note.
I do appreciate you guys taking the time out to speak with me.
Yeah, I know we were a bit of a chatterbox there.
Hey, no, it's hey, look, less work I have to do. So I'm all for it. But yeah, I really do appreciate you guys coming on and taking the time. Like you didn't have to do, and I appreciate it.
Oh man, thank you.
And yeah, thank you, man. This was fun.
Absolutely.
Definitely whenever you're back in Vegas, or maybe we can all meet in the middle of the country and we can social distance, smoke our own hookah or something.
Oh, I'm with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hang out all together apart.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night and good luck with the editing, Marcus. Thank you for the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for participating.
Talk to you
All
later.
right. Take care, guys.
All
Have a
right,
good night.
y'all. I'll chat to y'all later.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to this episode of the Third Eye Podcast. That was Sham, aka Din The Arbary, and our good friend Yasmin. I think we had a productive conversation. We didn't really touch all the way into racial inequality like I wanted to, but definitely look out for a part 2 because there's just so much to unpack with that topic, and it's ongoing, it's ever going, you know. So yeah, I do appreciate you guys listening, and before I go, I do have something that I want you guys to listen to. If you've made it this far, congratulations. But I have a song that I want you guys to listen to. It's from an artist. Her name is Kyla Imani. I found her video on TikTok, and it's an original song, and it depicts what people of color go through, especially during these times right now, what they're feeling. The song is called No Humanity. So I'm just going to go ahead and play that for you guys. So go ahead and take a listen.
Yeah. If it ain't the virus, then it's violence. Too much silence in the air, our people scared. Feels like nobody cares. If you wanna close the distance and you're white, then it's all fine. If you're not, you cross the line. We shouldn't dare, and it's not fair. We shouldn't have to worry when we go outside the house. Built this country on our backs, they just keep breaking us down. It's 2020, what the hell is that about? I'm trying to figure out, how is the land of the free and the home of the brave? Built off the backs of the slaves. Black man shot every couple of days. They see you running, put you in a grave. People dying, mamas crying. It's no longer underlying, and they keep on justifying. So we gotta keep on trying. Rest in peace to all the angels that we lost. We're gonna fight to do what is right, no matter the cost. How can this be the land of the free without justice? Justice. No justice, no peace, no humanity. How could you want this? Living in a system when you're constantly the victim. Too much to comprehend, so you start to pretend that you talk a certain way. Try not to run, just walk away. Keep that hood up off your head. You do everything to blend. We shouldn't have to worry when we go outside the house. Built this country on our backs, they just keep breaking us down. It's 2020, what the hell is that about? I'm trying to figure out, how you gon' sit on the side while these killings go by? like you're not down for the ride. You hear the stories, all you give is a sigh. We protest the streets and you wanna know why. Because people dying, mama's crying. It's no longer underlying, and they keep on justifying. So we gotta keep on trying. Rest in peace to all the angels that we lost. We're gonna fight to do what is right, no matter the cost. No matter the cost. How can this be the land of the free without justice? Justice. No justice, no peace. No
Alright, thank you guys so much. That was Kyla Imani with No Humanity. Tune in next week for another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Please go subscribe on whatever listening platform you are listening. Help me build my audience. Once again, guys, thank you. And remember, please love each other and be kind to one another. Have a wonderful night.